Have you ever wondered why you were born into a family filled with pain? Why is it that those who feel most deeply are often the ones misunderstood, cast aside, even labeled the black sheep within their own home? Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And nowhere is that truer than when you begin to examine your own path. You are not simply someone wounded by circumstance. You are someone who is awakening. You are not just a product of a toxic environment. You are the one called to transform it. What you're feeling, the sense of isolation, of being from another world, of seeing truths that others ignore, is not random. It's the beginning of a profound process, individuation, the journey back to your most authentic self, the part Jung called the self. If you're watching this video, chances are you've experienced things others around you could never fully understand: emotional control, invalidation, or growing up in an environment where your truth was never welcomed. But know this, that pain wasn't a punishment. It was your soul's initiation. It is the place where every journey of transformation begins. Jung believed that each person comes into this life carrying a map of the soul, and that map often leads us through the darkest territories first. Your family, whether conflicted, controlling, or quietly neglectful, may have been the first school your soul needed to walk through in order to awaken to higher awareness. Not to repeat the pain, but to end it. Not to become a victim, but to become a healer. You may feel exhausted. You may have once believed you were broken. But the truth is, within you burns a flame of spiritual freedom, one that no external condition can extinguish as long as you learn to look inward. You are not alone on this path. There are millions like you breaking free from generational patterns, awakening from family illusions, choosing truth over endurance. And right here in this space, you are seen, heard, and reminded that your difference is not a burden, it's a gift. If you've ever felt like the only one awake in a sleeping family, then this video is your safe space, a place where you'll realize you weren't born to repeat the old cycles. You were born to end them. So stay, open your heart, and let's explore why Carl Jung believed the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Because what once felt like a curse may in fact be the very gift you came here to give the world. Carl Jung once said, "Sometimes a tree has to break away from its old soil to find the light, and for many of us, that old soil is our family." Why is it that the very place meant to nurture and love us ends up being where we feel most isolated, most hurt, and least like ourselves? Why are those with deep emotional lives so often labeled difficult, overly sensitive, or the troubled one in the family? The answer doesn't lie in any failure of yours, it lies in the deeper nature of spiritual development. Jung believed that every soul enters life with an inner mission, a journey from the false self-persona to the true self-self. And the greatest paradox is this: we are often born into the exact kind of environment that contrasts our true essence so that we are forced to activate that journey. If you're someone who senses what others overlook, if you're easily affected by the energy in a room, if you find yourself questioning what everyone else just accepts, then maybe you're not simply different. Maybe you carry a depth that your past environment could never contain. Imagine a sensitive child born into an emotionally distant family. Every attempt to connect is met with coldness, sarcasm, or control. When the child says they feel sad, they're told, "Don't be dramatic." When they say they're not okay, they're labeled selfish. Over time, that child learns to hide their emotions, disconnect from their truth, and perform the roles expected of them. But it's in that very rejection that the awakening begins. Not because you're stronger than others, but because you had no other path but to go inward in search of a new source of nourishment. Jung called this the backward path, a journey not outward into the world, but inward into the unconscious, into the darkness, to uncover authentic inner light. In this case, the family becomes the first mirror, reflecting back the parts of you that were forbidden, denied, or ignored. And here's the miracle: it is in rejection that you begin to learn self-acceptance. It is through the absence of unconditional love that you begin to seek a deeper kind of love, one that arises from within, from the eternal source Jung called the self, and that others might call the higher self God or the universe. This isn't easy. Transformation never is. Many of us have struggled with the thought, there's something wrong with me. But today, I want you to know, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You're awakening. You weren't born into that environment to be buried by it. You were born to understand the nature of darkness and rise above it. And this isn't just poetic language, it's a truth proven in thousands of lives. From healers and spiritual leaders to visionary artists and change makers, many of them were once the misfit child, and yet, through their misalignment, they discovered the true value of their soul. So now I invite you to ask yourself, could it be that your difference is an invitation to come home to yourself? Could it be that your family wasn't the end, but the beginning of a deeper journey to who you were always meant to be? Don't rush to discard your past, because within that chaos may lie the very seed of your awakening. And when you recognize that, you begin to step into your true role, not the one who carries the wound, but the one who transforms it. Jung taught, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The family often becomes the breeding ground of inherited shadows, unhealed emotional wounds, passed in silence, shame, or misplaced loyalty. What you react to, coldness, criticism, abandonment, isn't just current, it's ancestral. The shadow lives in the tone of a voice, the roll of an eye, the unspoken rule of don't feel too much. But Jung never said to kill the shadow. He said, meet it, talk to it, integrate it. Because when you meet what you've suppressed, the guilt, the rage, the sadness, you don't become it. You transcend it. You begin to realize, I am not the roles they gave me. I'm not too much. I am exactly who I was meant to be, they just couldn't hold it. Your family didn't break you. It revealed the depth you now get to reclaim. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And in many cases, the darkness within a family is precisely that, a collective unconscious passed down for generations, unspoken and unnamed. Have you ever asked yourself why you react so strongly to control, why you're drawn to emotionally distant people, or why you feel like you're not good enough, even when no one says it out loud? These reactions don't come only from the present. They're echoes of unprocessed shadows from the past, especially from the environment you grew up in. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves that were rejected, repressed, and forbidden. Everyone has a shadow. But for those who grew up in toxic families, the shadow doesn't just live inside them, it lives in every corner of the home, in a glance, in a mocking tone, in the cold silence. Do you remember the first time you were scolded for crying? Or the first time you expressed emotion and were called too sensitive? Maybe you promised yourself you'd never be overly emotional again. But what you really did was bury the most alive part of your soul, the part that feels, that loves, that sees what others are too afraid to face. Jung didn't teach us to destroy the shadow. He taught us to face it, bring it into the light, and integrate it into the whole of who we are. Because only when we confront what we've disowned can we truly be free. And the family, even in its pain, is often the first place where the shadow makes itself known. It's where you're criticized for being honest, where you learn to be silent just to keep the peace, where you feel guilty simply for having emotions. These moments are not meaningless. They're mirrors showing you how the unconscious has been shaping your life. But here's what matters most. You are not the darkness you were raised in. You are the one who sees it. And because you can see it, you have the power to rise above it. Jung believed healing doesn't happen by avoiding pain. It happens by courageously turning toward it. And you, the one who cried alone after arguments, the one who was called too different, the one who tried to change just to be loved, you carry a strength your family may never recognize. You're starting to see through the system you once thought was normal. You're questioning beliefs you used to accept without doubt. And that is the first step of spiritual awakening, not false peace, but meaningful disruption. Imagine your life as a symphony, and the shadow is the low, heavy rhythm. Not to scare you, but to give the music its depth. Without the low notes, the highs would have no contrast. Without the night, we couldn't appreciate the morning. So instead of running away, start listening. What, in your family, causes you pain? What reactions are you repeating that were never truly yours? Whose voice do you hear in your mind? Your parents, your grandparents, someone who once wounded you? When you begin to answer those questions, you reclaim power from the unconscious shadow. You're no longer defined by old family roles, the crybaby, the invisible one, the scapegoat. You begin to rewrite your story. The shadow is not your enemy. It's an invitation. An invitation to stop running and start showing up. An invitation to stop living for approval and start living as your true self, even if no one understands you. Because only when you're brave enough to walk into the darkness with an awakened heart do you finally find a light that can never be extinguished, the light within. Carl Jung once affirmed, "We are not enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And sometimes the place that needs your light the most is the very place that once made you feel small, wrong, or unseen, your own home. You might be living among people who don't understand you. They don't believe in healing. They mock emotions. They deny the truth that you see clearly. But here's the truth. You don't need a perfect environment to grow. You need the right tools to protect your inner light. In this part, I'll share with you 3 spiritual tools, not just abstract ideas, but practices you can begin using today to stay grounded in chaos, and most importantly, to stay awake after working so hard to awaken. 1. The light cord, reconnecting to source. When we grow up in a home lacking in love, we often learn to seek validation from others. But one day, you realize true nourishment doesn't come from outside, it comes from source. Jung called it the self. Others might call it God, the universe, or the higher self. Close your eyes and imagine a soft but powerful cord of light connecting your belly to the sky. It's not religious, it's symbolic. A sacred lifeline between you and the source of life itself. Whenever you feel drained, lost, or unseen, picture light pouring down through this cord into your body, peace into your heart, strength into your hands, clarity into your mind. This is more than visualization. It's a way to reset your nervous system, your energy, and your soul. When you believe you are not alone, your body calms. Jung called this reconnection with the self, returning to the deepest, truest part of you. Dao. Detach from projection. You are not someone else's shadow. In toxic families, the sensitive ones often become mirrors for what others refuse to feel. You get labeled too emotional, selfish, dramatic, difficult. Jung called this shadow projection, when people cast the disowned parts of themselves onto others. Each time someone criticizes you, pause and ask, is this really the truth? Or is it just their shadow? They're avoiding. Am I reacting from my truth or from my old wound? When you can distinguish that, you step out of the emotional power game. You hold your inner sovereignty. You remain centered in what Jung described as the core of the soul. Here's a simple but powerful mantra for moments like that. This is not mine. Say it. Feel the separation. Let their projection return to them. 3. Energetic boundaries. Love with discernment. One of the hardest lessons in healing is realizing that love doesn't mean unlimited access. You have the right to close the door. You have the right to say no. You have the right to choose who enters your sacred space. Jung once emphasized, only by detaching from what we are not can we become who we are. Boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't push people away. They keep you anchored in your truth. And here's the strange beauty. When you set boundaries, you teach others how to love you better, or they walk away on their own. You can set a boundary by not replying immediately, by stepping away from controlling conversations, by prioritizing time with people who make you feel expansive, not small. And if you can't leave a toxic space right now, create pockets of spiritual safety, a quiet corner, a healing playlist, a supportive online group, or even just journaling each night to stay connected to yourself. In the end, your inner light doesn't need permission to exist, but it does need protection. In a loud world, a controlling family, or an unsupportive environment, you can still create a sacred space within you that no one can invade your soul's center. Remember Jung's words, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. And with these 3 tools, you now hold a map for awakening in the very place that once lulled you to sleep. You are not alone on this journey, and the light within you is leading the way. Carl Jung once wrote, "As you awaken, you don't light up the world with your perfection. You shine by revealing the darkness you've overcome. And if you've made it this far, that says a lot. You are not a casual observer. You are someone walking the path of true awakening. You're not just curious about spirituality, you're living it. You don't just want to understand your family, you're bravely looking into it to heal what has long been buried. Today, we've journeyed through the deepest parts of the soul. We've revisited the memories that once made you feel small. We've named the shadow, the parts of you that were rejected but continued to shape your behavior. We've honored the sacred role of the different one, the one who brings light to where pain has long lived. And most of all, we've learned how to protect that light through 3 powerful tools: reconnecting with source, refusing projections, and setting loving boundaries. But you know what? This is just the beginning, because awakening isn't a destination, it's a process. A journey where you don't have to be perfect, just honest a little more each day. If you cried today, that's a sign you're softening opening. If you felt a deep resonance, that means your heart is still alive, still longing to live truthfully. If some part of you felt seen, felt validated, hold on to that feeling, because that's your true self, whispering, "Yes, this is me." You are not alone. Even if those around you don't understand you, there are millions just like you, walking the same path, turning their backs on inherited darkness, choosing light not through grand declarations, but by living slower, more honestly, more deeply. And if this spoke to you, give yourself permission to take one more step. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss content that helps you understand yourself, rise from the shadow, and walk the path toward your light. Leave a comment below, share what touched you most, or simply write, "I was here. I'm beginning," because your words might be the lantern someone else needs in their darkness. Remember, you are not a victim of your past. You are the one rewriting the story. You weren't born to repeat the pain. You were born to end it. You don't need anyone's permission to become yourself. Your very existence is proof that light can be born from darkness. And as Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Thank you for being here not just in this video, but in your own life with honesty, depth, and courage. See you again in the journeys ahead. And until then, always remember, the light you're searching for has always been within you.